D&D Beyond wants you to sell homebrew on their site, and what that could mean for Roll20's parent company.
It's war!
Today marked the start of the D&D Creator Summit, an in-person and digital summit in which Wizards of the Coast engaged with content creators about Dungeons & Dragons, and specifically the future of Dungeons & Dragons. Now, we weren't invited to the event. We're journalists, not content creators, but a funny thing about putting a bunch of content creators in a room together and not putting them under embargo is that you get the general gist of what's being discussed in those panels. One of the most interesting tidbits coming out of the Creator Summit is that Wizards of the Coast wants to open up the D&D Beyond Marketplace for third-party creators. Details were pretty scarce, but the goal, at least according to EndWorld, is that creators can offer their products for sale, with the marketplace accessible, open, and available to creators. Now, they didn't offer many other details, but the prospect of opening up a marketplace with 4 million users is certainly an interesting one that could also be a major game changer for not only Dungeons & Dragons, but the entire creator industry that surrounds it. Assumably, D&D Beyond's marketplace would work somewhat similarly to the DM's Guild. Creators would release their D&D Beyond compatible homebrew and sell it on the marketplace, with Wizards taking a cut of every sale. But while DM's Guild is a relatively niche marketplace, only about 120 products have sold more than 5,000 copies on that marketplace. D&D Beyond has millions of users, and also can be more directly tracked by Wizards of the Coast. One of the perks of DM's Guild was that freelancers could get noticed by Wizards, so imagine that sort of potential for exposure, but in real time. If a subclass or a monster or a magic item takes off, will the D&D design team have access to that data so they can see what makes it so popular and potentially replicate it? One of the biggest perks about D&D Beyond for Wizards of the Coast is all the data it generates, and that could really lead to some interesting places. Now, of course, there are also a few complications with how all of this could go down. The first, of course, is whether there'd be any kind of standard or moderation to all this homebrew stuff beyond leaning on the community to report offensive content. There is a lot of bad DM's Guild material that kind of just sinks to the bottom, but that is somewhat filtered by the smaller scale of the DM's Guild. We don't see all of the bad stuff because not a lot of people go onto the DM's Guild. But it doesn't take a lot to whip together a homebrew magic item on the DM's Guild, so what's to stop someone like, well, me, from trying to spam the marketplace with hundreds of items per day? And then there's the whole business about folks putting existing third-party content on D&D Beyond as homebrew. Assumably, there'd be some sort of exclusive license in place similar to what the DM's Guild has, but how would Wizards hunt down people who steal other third-party content by putting it up on D&D Beyond for sale? The other complication, of course, is, well, what happens to the DM's Guild? D&D Beyond would be a massive marketplace compared to the DM's Guild, and it would make a lot of sense if a lot of creators would just publish on D&D Beyond instead of the DM's Guild. Like, if you had to choose between one of the two, why wouldn't you pick the one with the much, much larger customer base? And given that DM's Guild is owned by the same folks as Roll20, you know, the virtual tabletop service that's being kind of threatened by this whole new D&D VTT, it really seems that Wizards is gunning for their whole business.
D&D's virtual tabletop, with its 3D models and environment and its high production values, is clearly an attempt to take over the VTT market from companies like Roll20 and Foundry. With more enticing visuals and easy integration to a player's D&D Beyond account, it's really hard to imagine how something like Roll20 can compete with its much simpler visuals and its more complicated interface and its frankly not very good integration of 5e content. Honestly, between the eventual addition of homebrew content at the potential expense of things like the DM's Guild, another company that's under the same corporate umbrella as Roll20, and now with the looming VTT on the horizon, one company that's clearly coming out as a loser in Hasbro's plans for Dungeons & Dragons is the Roll20 One Bookshelf partnership.
I can't help but wonder how long the license between One Bookshelf and Wizards has left before the DM's Guild is up for renewal or renegotiation or cancellation. So, buyable homebrew definitely seems like it's going to be in the future of D&D Beyond. Now, this could be a long ways away, but it definitely seems like something Wizards wants to do. So our question for you, would you buy Homebrew on D&D Beyond? Would you publish it on D&D Beyond? Let us know in the comment section, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.